This is Tatiana Gidiez. We are on Thrive and Shine. This is another amazing episode. Thank you for joining us. I hope that by now you are enjoying our episodes and you are letting us know how much you're enjoying these episodes and what else you want to see on this show. This platform is really about authentic leadership. It's about creating change through consciousness and authenticity. It's about making an impact with your every step that one takes every day. And the leaders, men and women that I have on this show, all share that common denominator of creating an impact through embodying the change they want to see in the world. And so today, we have an amazing man who is contributing to my mission by showing up. We met at a U.S., what was it? I think we were at the Chamber of Commerce in Washington, and we started to have an amazing conversation with a colleague of his, and we actually never stopped talking the entire time. We closed the cocktail hour at the inaugural cocktail time for that event, which was a conference on women's leadership. So my guest today, without any further ado, is Roger T. Bain. So here we go. Here is Roger. So I'm putting on my glasses so I can read a little bit of Roger's credentials. So Roger is the director for media and thought leadership at PYXERA Global, which is a nonprofit NGO creating social impact with projects to enrich lives, inclusively and sustainably. So sustainable is a word that I love because I speak and teach on sustainable performance, and everything that is part of your description, Roger, is pretty much falling right in line with our mission and this show. So welcome. I'm so excited
Wonderful.
to have you. You are zooming in from Washington, correct?
Correct. Washington, D.C. I'm about 10 minutes away from the Capitol here.
Yes. So basically where we met, you're still there.
Still here. Live and work in Washington, D.C.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm so excited to have you. We've had these awesome, deep, meaningful conversations when we met, and it really stayed with me. And of course, we've had a few since then. But tell us a little bit about you and how you are choosing to create an impact in this world through your work and through media and as a thought leader.
Yeah, I mean, that's a wonderful question. And I think for me, it was a process over time. You know, I always knew that I wanted to do something that helped people. And it was just as simple as that. It was as simple as I knew that I wanted to work helping people from grade school all the way up. I just knew that. And then over time, you know, things happened and circumstances made it clear for me in terms of where I would do that and how I would do that. And essentially, you hear a lot of people talk about following their passions. And for me, it was just a incremental, step-by-step process of following my passions as they led me to the work that I'm in today, which is helping organizations and helping nonprofits and helping governments solve big, major challenges, global challenges that can't be solved without the collective impact of a number of organizations working together.
Yeah, I think if correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I've perceived through our conversations and what I've seen on you as I was researching a little bit to prepare for our show today, is your specialty or your gift is really in creating partnerships and creating collaborations between key organizations, whatever they are, and make sure that it's a win-win type of situation. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's exactly that. I love explaining what I actually do, but it's a little bit of public relations. It's a little bit of marketing. But it really comes down to relating to people and knowing what needs to happen to get something done. And for me, what I care about is I care about getting some of these major challenges done. We have a lot of major global challenges that we're facing when it comes to climate change, when it comes to issues of refugees, women's empowerment issues. When we're talking about how do we deal with the ocean and the plastic issue, in terms of how do we change the world for better.
Yes.
The way we do that is through partnerships with corporations. We do that through partnerships with governments, and we do that with partnerships with the general public. I really see myself as someone who is a relator and someone who takes the issues that I see every day and connect other people who care about these issues to try to make a change that's significant.
So in the issues you have actually just listed, those are major issues. I want to get back to women empowerment because, of course, it's a big part of my mission, and it's really how we started connecting. It's how we engaged in getting to know each other. Before we do that, what is prevalent? Which other issue right now is prevalent on your plate, where you're actively engaged in creating partnership for that particular issue?
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest issue that we're working on as an organization is an issue around energy poverty, where you have parts of the world that should and can have energy access, and people are just without energy. They're without power. And you have organizations, major, large multinational corporations that are also thinking about this issue. But what it's going to take some leadership on the side of from each sector, cross-sector leadership, to get people to work together to start doing the kinds of projects that will build infrastructure in nations like Africa and in other places around the world. So as a part of the what we're doing right now, that's a huge part of my work from day to day, and thinking about how do we get the word out and how do we bring the key players together.
So are you right now seeking alliances between different countries and those different places in Africa? I mean, there are a lot of different countries in Africa that need assistance. So how do you even begin to pick which one? And I mean, can you shed a little bit of light? I mean, to me, just thinking about it right now, it sounds like it would be such challenge to even pick a few. I mean, there are many. So how does your heart do the picking? Because you pick one and then you don't want to leave the others. How do you do it?
Right. Well, the great thing about working for social change is that there's always, for the most part, other people that care about the same issue.
Right.
And how do we pick? There's a tremendous amount of momentum with other organizations. We've been working with a coalition of organizations called Shine. And then there's a number of other organizations and corporations like Microsoft and others that are actually thinking about how do we fund, how do we add momentum to these issues of energy poverty. And so for us, it's a matter of who's having this conversation, who cares about this conversation. And then the first part is to convene the people who care about this and talk about ways that we can collaborate. So I think for us as an organization, that's where we are now. We're convening the people who care about this, and this is across sectors, and having that conversation about how we collaborate, because what we really need to do is we really need to get this down into bite-sized pieces. A lot of these things are massive challenges.
It feels massive, exactly.
But one of the things that you have to do is be able to figure out the first collaboration that you need to do that sets you up for a larger collaboration or something that's more ambitious. So the first thing that we need to do is figure out how do we do some of the small things together that sets us up for the larger.
And so what would be your greatest challenge in being that creator of alignment and collaboration in general? I'm not talking specifically with that particular project, but what is your greatest challenge?
I think one of the greatest challenges is finding the mutually beneficial win for people that are in partnership together.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a large part of that is, how do you relate to others? I think one thing, when we're looking at ourselves individually, sometimes it's difficult to relate to a number of different people and get everyone on the same page. That's a difficult thing to do when you're just dealing with individuals, when you're just dealing with people. What we're trying to do is, we're trying to do that on a grander scale, where you're trying to do this with organizations, and you're trying to do this with power, and you're trying to do this with people who maybe want to keep power in certain places, but you're looking for compromise in order to get people on the same page. So it's a challenge when you're facilitating and getting people to work together can be a major challenge. That's, I think,
it takes a lot of rapport building. It takes a lot of listening. It takes a lot of observation, I'm sure, to really figure out what is that common denominator, so everybody can be motivated to come to the table and bring their best game, their best self and their best game, in order to create that win-win situation.
Yes, it's, people speak different languages.
Literally and figuratively, correct?
Literally,
yeah. I mean, we see this all the time, even in a relationship, whether it's a relationship in business between an employee and a boss, a personal, intimate relationship. We all speak different languages. So what is in your nature, in who you are as Roger Bain, what has helped you really be that creator of that win-win collaboration? Is it really your ability to listen, and I know that you are a great listener, because you were amazing when we first started chatting. You were so interested. On top of that, you're very engaged. You engage, and you feel very genuinely interested. I guess it's your level of interest that you have naturally in people.
Yeah, I do. Well, thank you for that. That's a compliment. I do think it's important. It's important for us to understand people, but I think that's just, it is something that is a value of mine. I value diversity. I value hearing different perspectives, and not everyone does. And it's something that is not easy for a lot of people, but I think it's something that I value. And so it allows me to do the work that I do, because I want to hear different perspectives. I want to hear what makes people tick. I want to hear what it takes for people to be successful. And so for me, it's something that excites me to be able to connect and to relate to people that maybe I would not be able to connect and relate to if I weren't bringing them together around a common cause.
And in terms of this ability that you have to be so interested in diversity, and interested in listening to what other people have to say in terms of their own opinion, their views. This is how we had started talking, was on through a women empowerment type of event, right, at the Chamber of Commerce. And I was really taken aback in some way by your genuine interest in the mission that I'm leading, which is really bringing men and women together to better embrace each other, in order to work in a way in the business environment that leads to better results, more performance, better sustainability. And so it was so much fun to have your support, because you were like cheering me on, and it was really interesting to watch you be so fascinated with the greater understanding, because we went pretty deep into feminine, masculine energy, and what that means, and how it would impact lives in the business world. And what did you find the most interesting out of that particular conversation?
Yeah, I found it fascinating. My good friend Massey was there with us, and
I remember hi to Massey, because he was amazing, and I saw him on some of your Instagram posts. He was awesome.
Yeah, both of us were fascinated, and what we were fascinated by was the fact that you acknowledged the existence of a male and female energy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that I have not heard a lot of in
Mm-hmm.
the conversations around women's empowerment, women's equality, these conversations that are so important.
Mm-hmm.
I have not heard a lot of your point that there is essentially a way that a man fundamentally relates to women and a way that the women fundamentally relate to men.
Mm-hmm.
I really
Mm-hmm.
found it fascinating that you acknowledged differences as opposed to um, ignoring the differences
Or
between
right,
men and women.
or wanting to flatten out and eradicate the difference, because I really do believe that
Mhm.
we fundamentally are different as men and women. And I think it's so important that we understand and embrace and acknowledge the differences, so that we just, you know, are at peace with it. And once we
Mhm.
are at peace with it within ourselves, and we can be better at peace with the man around us, and vice versa. And so, but in fact, we have each of us a male and a female energy within. You do, I do, everybody does. Now, where women want to live and where men want to live in that predominant energy that they have within themselves is really the key, while they acknowledge the rest. I mean, you have emotions as a man. Does it mean that you're being feminine because you have emotions? No, it just means that this energy in you allows you to have access to those emotions within you. That's it. It's quite, but taken to a higher level
Mhm.
of integration in leadership, which is my specialty and expertise,
Mhm.
is really interesting, and I can't wait to talk more about that with you, because it's going to, it changes people. It really does change the dynamic, and
Yeah.
it changes also how we do not, in my opinion, we don't have to equalize in terms of the way that equalize the gender. I think what we need to
Mhm.
equalize is the opportunity that we have around us, right? We need to have access to equal opportunity, but I don't believe that
Mhm.
making us men and women equal in terms of who we are within is very productive. That's my opinion.
Yeah, and,
Ex-
and and that's what we found fascinating, because I appreciate the different perspectives, and I can understand the perspective of wanting to eradicate those differences, because with those differences come opportunities, as you said,
Mhm.
and then for you to understand that there are those differences, and to also realize that we should have equal opportunity, I think is just a unique view
Mhm.
that I just found incredibly fascinating, and it's so relevant to, I
What's
think, the
mhm.
work that I'm doing, and it's relevant in popular culture right now, and being in Washington D.C. and seeing some of the things that are taking place around the conversations around Me Too, and the
Mhm.
conversations about how men and women relate in the workplace.
Mhm.
It's just so relevant, and I think something that a lot of folks are interested in,
Mm.
and especially men who are allies for women empowerment, like myself,
Exactly.
and thinking about how do we encourage, and how do we help, and how do we be allies to the best of our ability, and just hearing someone like yourself give an avenue for us to be able to understand, and for us to be able to join in the fight,
Mhm.
uh,
Mhm.
extremely helpful, and just find a lot of insight in that.
That's awesome. And I am one of the biggest supporters of men in terms of who they need to be in life, and in understanding exactly how do they function differently? Because I think that I've been in the corporate world and in the business world for a long, long time. I have experienced the barriers, and I've experienced also the moments of negotiations or communication that are necessary, between men and women. And it's so obvious to me that we just lack a greater understanding about each other. And the world is like that. Like, it's interesting how, in this world, a lot of people are talking, or society is bringing to the surface a unification, and yet we don't even know how to celebrate differences. We don't even want to see the differences. On one side we want, and then on the other we don't. And there's this dichotomy that's constantly running our world, that is not helpful. It's not productive. It doesn't add to performance together.
I completely agree. And if I could just kind of tie these two ideas together, really, it just even exciting listening to you to share about this. But that conversation that we were having about relating to one another and understanding one another, and being able to sit down and hear a different perspective, or to hear that is a hard thing to do. Some people need to be taught to do that. One of the striking things from being at the conference there, it was for International Women's Day, and it was a conference of some of the most phenomenal leaders in the corporate world, female leaders. And I can't remember the speaker, but one of the speakers got up, and it was like a running theme because several people said it. They were saying that women's issues and empowerment won't change until we change the room.
Exactly.
And there was this call to look around the room and to find the men. And there really were a very, very few, maybe a handful of men that were in the room. And I can say for a lot of men, some are afraid. Some just don't know how to enter into the conversation. And they just don't know where their place is in the conversation around women's empowerment. And that concept of male and female energy, that acknowledgement of that, was really fascinating, because I think what that does is you opened up a space for a man to simply be a man entering that conversation and wanting to see women have equal opportunities. So I just find it fascinating that what that does, I think, is opens up a lane of entry for men to be a part of the conversation without feeling like
they need to tiptoe.
This is a woman's conference, and let me just not be a part of it.
Yeah, but I think that's the way to move forward. Is there's been abuse. We know that on every level in either side. And I think that at this point, we all are calling and wanting for a way to bring the energies together, the opportunities together, to bring the a sense of unity. But in order for us to have that, though, we cannot come back to your point. We can't come to the table and hold grudges and be resentful and be angry at the other sex because, the past experience has been such that blah, blah, blah. The past is the past. We need to move forward, and we need to find a way to move forward that is intelligent. I call it gender intelligence, because we need to, in order to relate, as you said, in terms for you to relate to these different sides that you're bringing together, the same thing for men and women. We need to be able to find that common denominator, or several common denominators that brings us together. It reminds me also of a movie I just was watching again. And Julia Roberts, is a movie star in that movie. I can't remember the title. I'm the worst with names, but she is falling in love with a librarian, and she's this famous movie star in the movie, and she just stands up in front of him at some point and says, I'm just a girl who just is falling in love with a boy and just wants to be loved, right? I'm not even quoting the but basically the point in that is that there is a time for working together and exploring Notting Hill. Yes, thank you. Exploring the corporate or business relationship between men and women. There is a time where, you know, it's about having an intimate relationship. I understand that. But in all of those, the common denominators are the same. Men and women have their own idiosyncrasies that need to be acknowledged and celebrated and embraced. And it's the same about races. You know, if we went to China and we go in without knowing exactly how to negotiate with a Chinese member of a corporation, we're not going to make the deal happen. Simply because we don't know how to relate. We don't know how to go in and honor and celebrate and embrace who they are within their own identity. It's the same thing. It's time. Yeah. It's time to do things differently. It's time to dare.
Yeah, complete agreement. It's something where you have to be able to relate to people, and you have to be able to see from their perspective. You know, men and women enter the workplace with different perspectives, and they enter the workplace with different obstacles. And I think men don't understand that. Men often can't see some of the obstacles that women face in the workplace. And I think current events, and we've seen some of the change. And I think a lot of men are really hungry to be allies, and are really hungry to find a way to make those changes, and to help our sisters, and to help our colleagues, and to help our daughters find those opportunities. And I think you're just one of the folks who are providing an entryway for men to enter that conversation.
Well, thank you for being one of those men. I honor you for that, and I so appreciate it. I can't talk, and so appreciate you. But the thing that I also want to mention, in addition to that, is we as women also, some of us do not know how to even bring you in. We don't know how to even understand you as men in a different way than what has not worked up until now. So I want to move forward, though, in more of a conversation about creating an impact in this world that you are so passionate about. I know you've written a few articles. You are an activist on many different fronts. So, what moves you? What moves you? We know, what moves you is helping people, but what else moves you in the world? What are you passionate about?
Yeah, and it's that's such a large question. I think, and people ask me that. I think I've gotten that question a couple of times, and really a large question. But I think I'm really excited about world changing, and world changing in the sense that what is it that needs to happen? What is the kind of leadership that needs to be present for us to change a particular situation, whether it be in our political system, whether it be in the environment, whether it be in terms of getting our values out there, or just sharing who we are. I'm really interested in world changing. And I think when people think about world changing, they think about the major players that have made their mark on the world, the Martin Luther Kings, the Mother Teresa, the major leaders that we think of when we think of people who change the world. And we often think that you have to be that kind of person to leave your mark on the world. You have to go to the best school. You have to do everything right. You have to have this pedigree to be able to change the world. I personally think that to change the world, you have to be able to relate to the people in your sphere of influence. And being able to relate to people in your sphere of influence is what it actually takes to make the incremental steps that amount to world changing.
So it's
And I
baby
think
steps.
we're seeing that. Yes.
It's baby steps. And it's
Hmm.
really not being afraid, I think, to take that first step, because I believe that for a lot of people, making a change in this world sounds really big, and they're
Yeah.
like, oh my God, I mean, I need to create X, this size in
Yeah.
order to create the change I want to see. When in fact, if you break it down into chewable size type of steps, then it's
That's
it's
exactly
how
it.
we can move forward in a way that still creates change. Okay, it's not this, but with time it accumulates, and this project becomes huge. And for me, it was actually it's when I created my last company, which became quite successful and large. I remember getting into it with this concept. At the beginning, I knew absolutely nothing of what I was getting into. I just knew that I was feeling very passionate, and I embarked on this project. And I remember thinking, okay, if somebody asks me in 5 years where I want to be and where is this company going to be, and at the time, I didn't know how to even mention what that would
Yeah.
look like. And I was at the beginning of my climb to my mountain top, and I remember thinking, baby steps. I'm just going to do baby steps, right?
Right.
It
I mean,
matters.
that's exactly what it is. I think the most successful people have really large world changing dreams,
Mm-hmm.
and they're also able to be pragmatic enough to think through the steps and be able to be excited about the small wins and the incremental steps that it takes to get to something that's large or something that's more ambitious. And I really think that that's something that for anyone that's listening, that's something that I'm thinking about. For
Mm-hmm.
anyone that's listening, it's how do you complete those incremental steps to
Mm-hmm.
get to that bigger thing that you're really hoping and dreaming about.
Yeah. And if you don't even know what that looks like, that bigger, better dream, if you don't know what it looks like yet, just take that first step. I want to come back to something you said,
Mhm.
as you're describing what you're passionate about in terms of making a change in the world. And you said, I'm interested in the type of leadership that creates change. So could you go back to that and describe what type of leadership that is in your eyes? What do you want to see, and how do
Yeah.
you actually embody that type of leadership?
Yeah. I think leadership is one of those ambiguous terms where if you ask someone, what is leadership? You will get
Exactly.
a million
I
different
know.
definitions.
It's like success. People use this term, or power. And when I love asking for that definition. Well, what does power mean? What does it really mean? What does success mean? People use those key words that, like authenticity, actually. A lot of
Yeah.
people use that word, and they just keep throwing it because it sounds really good. But when you ask them to really define it, they don't know. So I want to hear what you think.
Yeah, I think for me, when I think about the people that I work with, or when I see, oh, that's leadership, I do see that concept of authenticity. I think authenticity is the foundation of leadership. It's having the ability to reflect on who you are, what you want,
Mm-hmm.
what your values are,
Mm-hmm.
and then having the power to act on those things.
Mm.
I think our world is interesting in the sense that you can have dreams and you can have things that you care about, but not have the power to actually put those things to work. You
Well,
can have values and but not power.
hmm.
Leadership requires both the values that where you have that foundational value of what you want to do and
Mm-hmm.
how you want to do it,
Mm-hmm.
and then also having the power to be able to take those incremental steps to do that. But I think it starts with authenticity, and it starts with your ability to be able to reflect on who you are,
Mm-hmm.
and from that bring yourself to the world.
Right. Basically, having access to what is the best version of yourself, creating that
Yep.
space within, so that you know who you are, And it's something that I know for a fact because this is obviously my work. But a lot of people just don't know who they are. They just don't stop and take the time to figure it out and understand who they really are, and from that create, a space that is primarily theirs with no apology. You don't need to defend or promote who you are. It is felt by people around you. You don't even have to put words to it. If you really are in that authentic clarity of who you are. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally makes sense. Instinctually, I've been a person that's been very self-aware. It's been easier for me to reflect on who I am and to reflect on the things that are happening around me. But I notice with friends and colleagues, these are thoughtful people. They just simply don't think about, they're not that not that they're not self-aware. That's not the best word, but they don't essentially look inward as easy as I do. And
maybe they also haven't,
to,
maybe they also haven't seen the need for it. I mean, sometimes we get to a point in our lives, if we haven't been that up until that point of crisis, a crisis happens, and it's actually a heroic journey from then on, because the crisis serves that person to go deeper within and figure out more. And so self-awareness is key, yet it's almost like a luxury for some people. I mean, instinctually for others, it's just part of life, daily life.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think for those of us that it's not instinctual, that's where great mentors come in. That's where other leaders come in. That's where you seek out the kind of people that can be honest with you and give you observations of yourself. I was having a brunch with a colleague, and this person was sort of very intuitive. And when I sensed that, I took the opportunity to ask, I said, what is your first impression of me? What do you think about me when you sit down and meet with me? And
it's
a strange question, and you don't want to ask it to anyone.
No, because some people will feel a little bit strange and uneasy with that. Yes.
But if you have
it's a great question,
if you have a working relationship with someone and you have a level of trust and rapport built up with someone,
exactly,
you can ask the kinds of things that may help you better yourself and may help you understand yourself. And I think that's the first thing you need to do in terms of owning who you are and becoming authentic, and then being who you are in order to lead in the world. So I think that's a huge part of it, is understanding who you are. Definitely.
So can you share what that person said?
This person said to me, I totally can share, no problem. This person said that I was open and that I was thoughtful, and they thought that I was quiet, which I found interesting. And I think quiet is because I tend to try to listen when I'm actually trying to get more from my conversation. I'm trying to observe the conversation and observe an individual, and really understand where they're coming from. And I like to be around what I call nerds. These are the kinds of people that are a lot smarter than me, and to them I come off very quiet because I want to know their perspectives. I want to hear what they have to say, and I find myself doing that all the time. But that was this person's initial feeling about me, and I said, that's probably very correct. I try to be a relator, so I can come off as someone who's really trying to think about where someone is coming from.
That greater depth and understanding of their world, so you can relate to it. And so when you were describing also the type of leadership and using authenticity as the base, you said then to have the power to act on that level of clarity of who the person is, right? So
Yeah.
how do you then define power? What does that mean in that sentence, having the power
Yeah.
to act?
I think in the simplest form, power is the ability to act on your own uh, emotions, wills, desires, having the power to be able to take action on those things. Um, it's something where there are a lot of individuals who may have those desires, may have those dreams, but don't necessarily have the power to act on those things. And I think maybe contextually, what I'm thinking about is I used to work for an organization, wonderful organization called International Justice Mission,
Mm-hmm.
and we worked with in the issue of sex trafficking.
Mm.
And for about 4.5 years, I was just steeped into working and fighting on behalf of
Mm.
those who had no voice
Mm-hmm.
and on the behalf of trafficking victims who they had desires, they had things that they wanted to see, they had this life in front of them, but because there was someone that was an obstacle, they didn't have the power to actually do those things or to act in that way. So I think
Oh,
part
I
of that
see.
is what
Mm-hmm.
shapes my idea of
Mm-hmm.
power
Mm-hmm.
is understanding that there are desires and things that we all want to do,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe we don't have the power to do it. But there's also this hope in that there are power is something that can be given and other people can use their power on your behalf. And I like to think of one of the things that's important and that individuals who have power use it correctly,
Mm.
and they use it on behalf of those who are oppressed, those who are lost, those who are least, and those who don't have the power to act in
Mm.
a particular way. So I guess when I'm thinking about power, I'm thinking about it in the context of those who I've come across in life who did not have power.
And there comes your sense of justice and how you come in the picture and wanting to give that voice. I really feel that from you. You really do embody that type of that motivation to bring justice to the world by being that voice for these people.
It is there's a yeah I totally think that that's something that's almost a gift and a curse. It's I say it's a gift because you certainly want to find the ways that you can help give voice to people who don't have it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit of a curse when you spend a lot of time thinking about maybe some of the
Mm-hmm.
things that are negative. But I've found in my life that that search for justice on behalf of other people is just something that's a part of my DNA.
Yeah.
It's something that drives me. It's something that I think is also foundational and connects to my interests in terms of world changing.
Yeah.
It's how do you make things better for people that don't have the power to act on their own values.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that. It's really contributing to the greater good. You are a force in itself to contribute to the greater good, and in terms of that curse or that gift, I think that anyone who has, I would say, the responsibility or the power, because with any power comes great responsibility, right?
Certainly,
It's just
certainly.
like with the responsibility lies with the healed and the one who is
Oh, I
in
love that.
in their power, to know better, to know what needs to take place or needs to be done or needs to be even not even said. Sometimes not saying anything is of greater power than using words. I do believe that in being a force for good in this world has that double edge. It's a gift and a curse, and we call it a gift and a curse because there is a lot of contrast to that expression,
Yeah.
which is a colorful type of expression. But in fact, it's really just relating to the contrast that exists between being a responsibility bearer to create
Mhm.
good in this world. I mean, it's a sense
Yeah,
of responsibility that I know I have, that I have days where I'm literally going, holy crap, like, there is so much for me to do. I want to create so much more of an impact in the world, and there's one more day where this is it. So, and then if I flip that around, then it's like, oh, wait a second, let me reframe this, and not go into the drama of the gift bearing, and
yeah,
just go into, oh, okay, so this is my gift. This is where I'm perfectly in line. This is where I'm committed. This is where I'm in love with my mission and my passion. And this is how I choose to lead my life, because this is where I really want to be, right?
exactly. Yeah, it is. I love the way you put that, in that it's that contrast of, you want to see things changed, but everything isn't always perfect for yourself.
Mm.
So you want to see, and you want to make progress on other things in your life. And I think in life you have seasons where a part of your life is going to be going well, and another part of your life maybe isn't going as well.
Mm-hmm.
And and that's related to a desire to see justice on behalf of someone who is experiencing injustice, or that could be on a number of different issues related to leadership. But there is that contrast in life, that we're going to be successful in areas, and then in other areas maybe not as successful.
And that's okay, as long as we
Mm.
move forward and we take on these baby steps in the leadership that we believe in, right?
Yeah, and a part of that is the authenticity of leadership, is being able to act in the reality of that,
Mm.
and being able to act even in spite of that.
Well said. So let me ask you, who do you look up to in terms of that authentic leadership? Tell me a few of your mentors, or a few
Mm.
people that you look up to. You might not even know them personally, but who do you look up to?
Yeah, I think when I started to think about the career that I'm in now, I have to drop the name of someone who's really an influential person in my thinking, when I started to think about how do you bring people together,
Mm-hmm.
and that is Alice Korngold. She would be so excited if she knew I was dropping her name on this.
Yay!
Um,
Maybe you can send her the recording of this show.
yeah, certainly. Her name is Alice Korngold. And Alice is a consultant that has written about um, leveraging goodwill. She's
Mm-hmm.
written about, one of her books is called The Better World, A Better World Inc. And I
Okay.
actually read that book when I was thinking about, how do I take my desires for solving massive challenges in the world? How do I take my desire of doing this and put it to work in some way? And what do I need to do to get
Mm-hmm.
myself closer to that?
Mm-hmm.
And that book was just like this pathway of showing how it's actually already happened, and then also showing how the kinds of leaders that are actually working to bring corporations, governments, and
Mm-hmm.
nonprofits together to solve major challenges.
Beautiful.
So it was a great. A couple of weeks ago, I had read her book, and I was kind of really a fan of her work. And then a couple of weeks ago, I actually met her in person,
Oh,
and
beautiful. You
so
have
it's
to send her this recording then.
yeah. So it was very
That's
exciting because
amazing. That's amazing. So we have maybe 2 minutes left, and I want to ask you a couple of questions. What is your first thought in the morning when you get up? Like, what moves you to get out of bed?
mm, that's a really big one. But I think the first thing that moves me is I think about my daughter
I
every
knew you
morning.
were going to say that. You have a yummy little girl. She is
I
so
have a
adorable.
I have a 7-year-old daughter, and what gets me up and motivates me is thinking about just giving her the world.
Oh, what a great daddy you are. And what would be one word that would summarize who you are?
Mm. I'd like to think courage.
Hmm.
I know that sounds like a
Who
word
cares
that
what that
you
sounds
would
like? We
leave
don't
for
care
everyone.
about what it sounds like. We just want to have what was true to you? Courage.
True to me, I think courage, and I think it's how do you, again, it goes back to sort of what we've been talking about, and as I've been talking about foundational, it's the courage to act on behalf of others, or the courage to act on behalf of yourself when even when you don't feel like you're worth it, or when you don't feel like you can do it. It's the courage to believe in yourself and to believe in what you're doing.
Beautiful. One last question, then we have to wrap it up because they're telling me that we have to. I don't really want to, but what are you not able to go without every day?
I would say what I'm not able to go without, it seems to me, would be a time of reflection. I'm a person who really takes that time of reflection, that part of the day where I'm saying what went good, what went not so good, who am I becoming?
Oh, beautiful. Who am I becoming
today? And asking myself that question. That's something that seems to be a major part of my life these days. So I can't really go without having that. And sometimes that's with myself, and sometimes that's with great friends. Doesn't always have to be something that you're doing by yourself, but reflection is so important.
So, Roger, thank you so much. How beautifully perfect to end on how am I becoming. This is a gorgeous thought and action to take on that particular thought. And I cannot wait to have another conversation with you on who we are becoming and just go deeper with that.
Indeed.
So thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me on.
It is amazing. Thank you so much. We are done for today. I hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll see you soon. Take care.
Awesome.